All right, welcome to the Creation to Cash Flow podcast. On this podcast, we discuss strategies to maximize your creativity and help you achieve financial freedom. Hi, Michelle.
Hello, Nick.
How's it going?
It's wonderful, as usual, as I've said in the last 73, 74 episodes of this
This is
podcast.
episode 74. So you said it about 73 times so far.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, everything's great. I slept 3.5 hours last night, but I'm feeling good. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. Last night, me and some of my friends got together and we're making everyone make something like fantastic, like best thing you can make. And I made your jalapeno poppers.
Oh my gosh, what did people think? How was it?
They were such a hit, and thankfully I made way too many. So after this, I'm going to make probably several cheeseburgers and have a bunch of them, and life is going to be good.
I am significantly jealous right now. I'm so hungry and the thought of that. Oh my gosh. I haven't had a popper since San Diego. So I am just like craving it. Okay, I think that's what I'm gonna prioritize that tonight.
We were just talking about how Michelle needs an executive assistant to help her manage her priorities, and she just dropped everything to make jalapeno poppers.
Oh my gosh, this is what I mean. This is why I need somebody to help me because everything is a priority. Everything is important and it needs to be done now. Like that. But you're right. Maybe I don't need to prioritize that.
I mean, maybe you do. Maybe you do. We'll eventually get you someone to help sort through those and decide when the jalapeno poppers need to be made. All right, so today we are going to talk about imposter syndrome. We did an episode on this previously, but we're going deeper and we're going more specific because we got a really good question from one of our listeners. So, Michelle, are you ready to hear what they had to say?
I am ready.
Hey Nick and Michelle, it's Alexi. I want to send a quick voice memo because I definitely told Michelle I was gonna do one, and I was really stuck on what to even start saying or like what to even suggest. But as of right now, I think the most thing that I see so many people struggle with, including myself, is just like imposter syndrome. How to get away from having so many different ideas, but like struggling to do it yourself or seeing other people do something. You'd be like, I could do that. And then you can't, you go to like film or like you just can't vision yourself doing it when you try to do it, if that makes sense. Because like I've been trying to really find what content resonates best with me, but my problem is, or my struggle that I've been finding is that I love so many different things, and I feel like I want to talk, and I feel like I want to do hair content, and I feel like I want to do lifestyle content, but when I go and have these like amazing ideas and I go to film, I'm like that doesn't even look right, or that doesn't look like, that doesn't work. And the imposter syndrome is definitely real, and even with like collaboration, just knowing that your content is quality, and like I think just your best tips on that is going to be helpful for not only me but for a lot of people that do content creation and anybody in the world, honestly. But yeah, I'm excited.
I love her.
Yes, I'm super excited to dive into this because, I mean, one, Lexi, thanks for submitting that. And I know it's kind of vulnerable, honestly, submitting some of those things to our podcast, but I want to just remind all of you listening that you can go to creationtocashflow.com. You can go submit one too. Whatever it is you're struggling with or want to hear us talk about, let us know. Drop us one of those voice memos and we will do one of these AYQ answering your question episodes on that topic. So, anyway, Michelle, are you ready to dive in?
I am, because this is so relatable.
First off, I don't know, I think the first thing we need to do is just normalize that you are never going to be perfect at everything. It's just never going to happen. And I think a big part of imposter syndrome is that like you can't feel like an imposter if you're not comparing yourself to other people and
Hmm.
how they're doing. So we got to start with just everything comparison related because if there's no measurement to grade how you're doing, like she was talking about her content creation, but this applies to everything. How would she know like what is the rubric to grade her content on if she's not watching and studying other people's content? And I mean that in such a way where if she can stop looking at what other people are doing and focus on what she is, there's no opportunity to say I'm not as good as the other people.
Yeah, and I know it's so hard not to compare, and I think it's actually kind of good sometimes to observe. Like I remember in the book that the Robin Sharma book, The Saint, the Surfer, and the CEO, it talks about how monks, I always say monk, but I think it's monks spend time in solitude, right? They go to the top of the mountain, they're not with anyone, and that's great and all for peacefulness, but you're not able to compare any of your thoughts against anything. You can't compare your height to anything if you don't have a door frame to compare it to. Like there's like certain things that I think it's so natural for us to compare, and it's not a bad thing. Like people, I heard this study, I know this is such a tangent. I heard this psychological study about gossip and why do people gossip? Why do people crave it? And one of the things that these scientists found out is that people want to they want to check their own morals and then have something to compare it to. They want to see if everyone else is kind of thinking what they're thinking, which is why sometimes things become normalized in society because people start doing it more and you start seeing that your thoughts are similar to others. And so I know it's so easy to do that with real life. So, of course, it's easy to compare your visuals, your message, and your content to other people's content and even to your past content as well. And so, let me just say, like, saying never compare yourself is so not it's not a logical thing and it's actually not realistic. Like we're going to naturally compare ourselves. So that needs to be normalized too, but there is a way to do it in a healthy way to where it's actually beneficial rather than hurtful.
Wow, that was a lot of good stuff right there, especially the gossip thing. I've never heard that. That makes so much more sense because I'm super anti gossip. Like some people, like they know this and they're like, "Oh, don't even gossip around him. Like he's no fun." And it's like no one's actually saying that to try and hurt my feelings, but like a lot of people like to gossip, and anyone in around me knows that I definitely don't want to sit there and talk about other people. Like I want to talk about like goals, dreams, deep subjects, jalapeno poppers. Like these are the things I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about other people that aren't here and can't even defend themselves in this conversation because rarely do we have nice things to say.
Right, same.
But I really like this concept of like, there's some comparison, obviously. It's going to happen inevitably, but who and how we're comparing ourselves to other people, that's what matters a lot. And Michelle, how do you do this in your life? Because I know you're not big on like consuming, but like to a degree, if you compare yourself to people, like what does it look like?
Ooh, that's such a good question. I more so observe things. I love to take things in, especially things that are new, things I might not agree with. Like, I'm just such an observer. Like, I love all points of view, all religions, all like just everything. I just like soak it all up, but I don't use it in a way like I don't consume any of that stuff in a way of like now I need to make a different decision for my own content unless it's positive, unless it's good. I don't know. I'm trying to like think of how to even answer that because I don't really know. I'm not a big consumer, but there are lately I've been loving these YouTube commentary videos. I don't know why, but I've been loving hearing people give commentary on influencer things or on drama. I know that we were just talking about we don't like gossip, but it's not that these people are gossiping, it's more so they're giving their perspective on certain situations and I eat that up. I absolutely love it. But I'm not like over here being like, okay, I need to become a commentary person now, or oh, I don't know, Nick. I don't know if that answers anything. I think that more so I'm like, oh, are these influencers getting called out for their behavior? Is there something I can do differently to where I'm not offending people or I'm not becoming the talk of somebody's YouTube commentary video? But I don't do it to put myself down, if that makes sense. Like I'm not doing it to make myself feel lesser than. I don't know if that answers anything. That's so all over the place. What am I even saying?
No. I think it was a lot more reeled in than you think. I'll tell you who I compare myself to, and I think this is kind of what you're doing, but maybe just worded differently. I compare myself to one, the general population, and as sad as this may seem, the general population ain't doing great. They're not a lot like most people I know or come across. They're not that happy. They're not that proud of who they are. They don't have a lot going for them. And I hate that. I hate thinking that the world is that way, but I can't deny it because I see it.
Yeah, it's true.
It's not my point of view. It's what people say and how they constantly complain about the things they're dealing with. And I'm like, okay, when I compare myself to the general population, I'm doing pretty damn good. And the other person I compare myself to is who I used to be. And as long as I'm seeing growth and progress, it just roots me in gratitude and all imposter syndrome goes away because I see that I'm working on myself and I'm getting better. And I truly just, I don't give a shit about what other people are doing. Like, there are so many people out there that have as many followers as me on, let's say, TikTok, like 500,000 followers on TikTok. They all probably get more views than me because I blew up. Like, what I blew up for is not what I always make content about. So I know that, like, a lot of the time I'm going to throw up a video and I know that this is not going to do well, but I don't care because who I'm grading myself against is not other people with 500,000 followers, even though that's what our brain would do. It would be like, well, what are other people that are at the same level as me? What are they doing? Am I doing as good as them? Are they beating me? But I don't care about that because those people, I mean, good for them, but I'm not trying to be them. I'm just trying to be me. And I want to be more me every single day. And I want to be a better version of me. So I compare myself to the general population and who I used to be. I used to dream of having 500 followers on TikTok. I would take screenshots. I'm like, I get 138 followers. I hit 150 and I take another screenshot. And I hit 175 and I take another screenshot. I've accomplished the thing I want to accomplish. I don't care about how many views or likes or comments that I get. Sometimes I get a ton. Sometimes I get very few. And a lot of the time I put up a video and I'm like, I know this is not going to do well, but it's not for them, even though it is in a way. I'm putting it up for me because maybe there's something I want to share. So that's who I compare myself to. And it just makes all imposter syndrome melt away because I'm less of an imposter than I was last year. I've taken time to improve and get better.
You just broke down everything I was trying to say perfectly. And it's true. The thing is, too, is like, I know that what I'm doing is something I love. And I also know that there are a lot of people that come to us that are like, okay, I'm now making $10,000 a month on TikTok Shop. Now it's time to make a course. And I'm like, okay, do you want to do that? Like, is that something that's like your desire is to become a coach and create less content and make less money because you're going to be spending that on doing a course and coaching people? And they're like, no, I just, like everyone else does, that's just what you're supposed to do. And I'm like, I think you need to take a step back. I promise you, I've seen it for years. I've seen people get success. People are asking them how to do that, how to do it. So they're like, okay, let me take a step back from doing it and coach you and make courses about it, because they see other people doing that and then they don't make a lot of sales and then they're not happy and they're like, what did I do wrong? And I think it's just that you were just trying to compare your journey to somebody else's that had success, but maybe that wasn't the route you needed to go, and that's okay. But that's just an example of, like, I see this all the time, not even just with the visual piece of content, but even with the direction of your life. Like, just because you're having success and people are asking you how to do something doesn't necessarily mean your next step in your journey is to become a coach or have all these digital products. Like, of course, yeah, we love passive income. Like, do what makes you happy. But I think that it's just natural, right? So I agree that the general population isn't happy and they are bitter. You know, not everybody, of course, but a lot of people are. And I I think that it's so affirming whenever you show up knowing that you're happy doing what you love and knowing that the algorithm will do its thing. You know, you're only in control of what you can create. There's so many times I hate the content that I make. Like, I make a video and I'm like, this will never be posted. And there's two videos in particular that I felt this way about. And I'm like, this is so, like, this product isn't aesthetic or something. And I'm like, this isn't a good video, but I'm just going to post it anyway. And both of those videos went completely viral. And I'm like, wow, I just have to show up and execute. Stop being so nitpicky, even comparing it to my old content, because the next day I'm going to post something else, or maybe the next week, because I'm not that consistent. The next week I'm going to post something else, and then that video I posted is going to get buried regardless. But every time I show up, every time I execute, do what I say I'm going to do, I'm going to grow. And I think growing and becoming a better creator is the most important thing. Like, growing in your confidence comes from doing what you say you're going to do, and then growing in your skill set comes from executing, creating, editing, posting. That's that creative muscle that we get to work. And so that's what we need to be looking at of like, okay, I am doing better than I was a year ago. And that's the only comparison that I think is so important. But again, back to the commentary, these people that people talk about on like the influencers, I think they just become so out of touch with, I don't know, they become almost like entitled and arrogant. And I never want to become that. I'm like, please, for the love of God, please let me always be humble and kind and gracious and giving towards others. Like the more I grow, I want to give more. And so I think that it's so helpful for me to see these things. But I'm like, as long as I'm not becoming arrogant and a prick, then, and my ego is so big that I'm going to get offended by things, like I'm doing pretty good.
I love that. I love that so much. And I really like the story about the videos that you thought were not good enough and you were feeling not super confident about, and then you put them up. And sometimes they work their magic. And other times too, like you probably have, I know I do, a video that I don't feel that good about and I put it up and it definitely does not go viral. It goes very much like, oh yeah, well, that didn't really pan out. But I also like to remind myself that success and whatever you define success as, like no one is actually perfect. Like I love thinking of baseball. The best hitters in baseball, they get on base a third of the time, and business is very much like that. Except sometimes as a content creator, it's harder because you're like your fails, your misses, your strikeouts, they're public and it can feel like a big deal. But realistically, you just have to keep doing your best and you're going to have slumps just like in baseball, and you're going to have like sometimes you're just going to be hot. Things are just going well, things feel really effortless, but you have to be so rooted in your intentions. And if your intentions are good, you'll never actually feel like an imposter. Like I felt a little imposter syndrome when I was first starting out as a life coach, and I was selling my 21-day mental reset program that I spent 8 months on, and I was selling it for $50 plus 3 coaching calls with me. Like that probably boiled down to like $8 an hour for me. But my intentions were so good that I was like, I'm not an imposter. Like I spent so much time on this and I know it can help people because I tested it on other people. I was like, I know I've got something here. I also know some people are going to end up buying it and not getting amazing results, but I was like, my intentions are good. I know that I'm going to help some people with this. And that just roots me in the fact that like, I'm not an imposter. Am I the world's greatest? No, probably not. And that contributes to it, but you'll probably never be the world's greatest at everything. If you're lucky, you can be the world's greatest at one particular thing, but you have to come to terms with the fact that if your intentions are good and you're growing and making progress every day, you're not an imposter. You are the same as anyone else who's ever been great at anything and felt the same way.
Wow, that is so freaking true. And I think that's why I don't feel this a lot of the times. Like, I mean, I rarely ever feel this way because I'm being honest in what I'm posting and what I'm sharing and what I'm creating and delivering to the brand because I mean it. Because I'm like, wow, this is something I truly love because I no longer accept things that I don't currently use and want to promote. If they're telling me, say it does this X results, I'm like, no, because I haven't used it. That's not truthful. And I think that just like staying grounded in that and staying firm and like what I'm deciding to promote and then actually truly showing the excitement because it's genuine makes me just feel like I'm just sharing these things with my friends. Like I am just showing up, sharing things I love. I'm not doing it because I'm getting monetary compensation because my moral compass is so freaking strong. It's so annoying sometimes, but I'm like, I morally cannot lie about this stuff. Like, morally, I've got to stick to what I know. And therefore, I'm just being myself. And so there is no, I don't feel the imposter-ness. I don't know if that's a word. I don't feel that because I'm like, I'm just being me. And the thing is, we are all so unique and so amazing. We all have something to bring to the table. Our perspectives are all different, our pasts are all different. And I think that the more we just show up authentically, it's just so beautiful. And it makes us feel proud that we're showing up at all and that we're being honest and truthful. I just feel like we subconsciously feel that. So when we're trying to create content, pretending to be or do something specific, it does feel a little icky. And that's just a moral compass thing.
I love that. I love the authenticity part of that. It's just so much easier if you're being authentically you. And Another thing that's really helped me too, to kind of add to what you're saying, reading books.
Mm-hmm.
If you just read books from anyone that has done anything amazing in their life, they will give you plenty of discussion about how they never, ever, ever thought this could be them. And they will tell you about all of their failures, and they will tell you about all of the moments that they quit or almost quit. And it's just a reminder that like every success story is just full of failure and like imposter syndrome until it works, until it becomes like you're a massive success. And even still, then those people will still tell you, they'll be like, I don't think I'm anybody, to be honest. Like I feel like a phony on stage. Like they so many people, especially motivational speakers, will tell you that. They're like, I am so grateful for each of you guys because I have the same brain as 20 years ago when this was just a dream and I felt so fake trying to help the first person. And they'll tell you, they'll be like, I'm on this stage right now, or I'm writing this book right now. And I truly, even still, feel like I don't have enough to give you guys, but here's everything I got.
Wow.
That helps me so much. There's a good book, Hustle, Believe, Receive, that helped me a lot when I was like starting out with things. It's full of, I think, 51 different come up stories essentially, and they're all mortifying what these people have had to go through. And it's just a great reminder of like, oh, I'm actually doing okay. And as long as I have good intentions, I'm happy every day, I'm authentically me, I'm doing things in alignment with myself. It's not all about how things perform. You know, the inputs are more important than the outputs, right? If I just put in the work daily, live a happy life, I'm authentically me. What outputs do I actually give a shit about? Is it how much money I make? Because that's a stupid thing to care about. And once you can retrain your brain to realize that's not the most important thing, well, then you can kind of remove yourself from the metric and the scales that we use to decide how good we are at something.
Yeah, I think that's honestly so important. I would say if there's anything that Lexi and everybody else listening can take away from this, it's that you show up, you're proud that you showed up, and then you're not focusing on the outcome and the results. I know we've talked about this so many times. I just don't look at how my content performs. I know I should. I know I should look at it to think of how to do things better, you know, and like, yeah, that's a great marketing strategy, but I get in my head. And when I'm in my head, I'm not creating. When I'm in my head, I'm feeling less confident. And instead, I'm like, I wake up just like Lexi. I have so many different passions. I am all over the place with what I create, and I truly love it. I would not want it any other way because when I wake up and I'm like, "Ugh, I just feel like making hair content today, and I never make hair content. I'm not a hair creator, but I'm going to make something because I'm just feeling the vibe. Like this morning, there's this trend going around where you ask Chat GPT to like roast your feed. And they like roasted me and I got it kind of was like, wow, okay. It's saying how like basically I make it seem like everything's perfect and I hide behind a facade. So I was like, fine. So this morning I woke up, I was like, I'm gonna record the most unaesthetically pleasing content, day in the life, morning in the life video. And it's honestly, I don't know how it's gonna do, but I would have never thought to do that. But I'm gonna just tell the story of like, hey, my dog threw up at 5 a.m. Here's me washing his blanket. I'm going over my lines. I'm recording a video. I'm doing my podcast. Like I'm just gonna break down the most it's just not curated at all. It's not. And that would have never come if I wasn't open and comfortable with how I am as a creator. I don't need to have a schedule every day. I mean, I probably should. That's why I need an executive assistant. I need priorities. But that's what I mean is like I've allowed myself the freedom to just be present and just create around what I want to create. And it's so, if anything, it just gives me confidence. And I think confidence is the foundation to that creativity, to building upon different ideas. Because when you're confident, then you just, everything else kind of like, I don't know, it just doesn't matter as much. Like the performance and the outcome doesn't matter as much.
Wow. Oh, that was so good. I'm very excited to see that video because everyone just has all these images of what people's lives are like, and it's just not the reality. It's really just not. So like the more authentically you can show things off, is it always going to perform? Who cares? Let's stop grading ourselves on that. And instead, let's just be us and you will feel better. And then by feeling better, you're going to start to show up better. And then it'll start to perform because you're showing up as the best version of yourself. Oh, so good.
I also want to touch on the thing that Lexi said about her making a piece of content because she saw something and then it didn't come out the way she thought and it didn't look as good as she thought. I just want to say that happens to me almost every day. And in some of my behind the scenes videos, I try to show that where I'm like, oh, and then I filmed this and thought it didn't look as good. So then I had to dump the cup out, clean it, dry it, and then redo the whole thing. Still didn't look good, but I'm going with it. Like, that is such a perfectionist thing. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Like, of course, pay attention to details and all of that. I think that detail oriented is a good skill to have as a content creator and an entrepreneur. But I just want to normalize that like that happens and that's okay. It's an opportunity to actually get better and grow in your skills. Like the mistakes I have made and the lack of aestheticness I have created over the several years I've been making content is actually why I am where I am right now. Because I was like, I could do better. I could do better. I could work on this. And there's a balance obviously between being a perfectionist and also, you know, just showing up and freaking doing the dang thing, knowing it doesn't have to be perfect. There's a balance, but I think that no matter what, I see where I can improve. And then the next video, I'll improve. I'll try again. And it's not that deep. Like, it's not like life or death. It's not like I work in an ER and I'm like, okay, if I don't have this perfectly done, then somebody's going to die. No, I just might not get an extra like, you know? And so I have to remind myself, like, Michelle, I know it feels like the biggest responsibility. Like the weight is on me to be perfect. But I'm putting that on myself and I really don't think that people expect that. Especially people that aren't creators are probably not seeing the things I'm seeing. You probably don't see the things that I see. I'm so nitpicky. You know that. Like I just am. And so I just want to say like yes, to see something you've made and you're like not happy with it, that's normal, but like just follow through with it anyway and do better in the future. Just try again in the future, but don't completely waste what you just did because it's actually getting you one step closer to becoming even better.
Yeah, I love that. I'm kind of the same way too. I see people doing things and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do that. And that is how I end up with like this week. I'm like, okay, cool. So I gotta go surfing and I got Spanish lessons in the morning and I gotta go play my guitar, but I've also gotta go teach a yoga class. And like this is how I end up with so many things on my plate. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like I'm not good at any of these things. I'm not good at Spanish. I'm not good at playing guitar. I'm not good at surfing. Um, I would say I'm a great yoga teacher, but I've been doing that one way longer. And at first, I was not great at it and totally felt like an imposter, especially because during my yoga teacher training, it was all women. And I was like, where the fuck am I right now? But I was like, you know what? I don't care. Like I'm the least flexible person there because I'm the only man, not to be sexist, but that's just kind of how men's bodies often work. And I was like, cool. I'm a total imposter when I'm playing my guitar, when I'm surfing, when I'm doing Spanish lessons, when I'm learning to become a yoga teacher. I was like, I'm an imposter at all of these, but I don't say that to myself. I just reframe it and I'm like, I'm still learning how to be good at these things. And I just reframe the way I think about it. Because if you're an imposter, it implies that you have bad intentions. Like you're trying to convince people you're something you're not. And I'm the opposite of that. I will tell you, I always tell people when they want to talk to me in Spanish, I'm like, look, I live in the present and I can only speak present tense. So do what you want with that. I'm a very present Spanish speaker. And like I will put up videos of me playing guitar and it sounds like shit. It's getting better, but it sounds shitty. And
I don't think so.
well, you get the polished version though. Like in person, when I'm trying to get that perfect clip, it can be ugly. It can be super ugly, and I often share that too. I share some of the ugly ones as well. But I've changed the rubric that I grade myself. I'm not an imposter if I'm not trying to sell out a stadium and get people to pay me so they could come watch me play guitar. I'm not like my intentions are good. I'm trying to just document the journey of going from being not good at guitar to maybe being okay at it to being good to hopefully one day being great. So I've just completely changed the way I think about things. And it's not easy to reprogram your thinking, but you got to spend more time reading books, listening to podcasts, and downloading information into your brain that will reprogram the way that you think. And that has worked well for me. Like, I am not a perfect person, but I keep downloading things. I talked to Jose this morning for probably an hour and a half just to reprogram my way of thinking.
Wow. I think that's so crucial. I tell people all the time it's all about like how you're responding to something. Like in class on Sunday, a mirror almost fell over and somebody was like, "Oh my god, don't break the mirror, 7 years of bad luck." And I was like, "Oh, I actually have a completely different perspective on that." And he was like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, if I break a mirror, walk under a ladder, or see a black cat on accident," which if you're listening and you don't know, those are like quote unquote bad luck, like all three of those things. But I'm like, oh my God, if I do that, I got 7 years of good luck. And he was like, whoa. And I was like, yeah, and I'm like a super lucky person. So, like, I think it works. And he was like, I never thought about that. I guess I could have that perspective. And I'm like, yeah, it's a thing. Like, try it out, you know? So, I say that to say, if you are making content and you see your content, instead of saying this doesn't look good, oh this could be better, like be like, oh, I'm so proud of myself for making this. I'm still learning, I'm a work in progress, but I'm progressing because I did this. I did the damn thing. And just tell yourself that. It's so powerful. Like the affirmations, the words that we speak are so powerful. And so I know it's way easier said than done, and it does take time to build up the stamina of these positive affirmations, but I promise you it's worth working on that muscle.
Yeah, it's proud progress. It's all inner work.
Yes.
And it's a lot of, honestly, to me, it's a lot of writing in a journal. It's a lot of that. It's a lot of just like, get this off my chest. I'm allowed to write down like, oof, I feel I feel silly that I bought a guitar today. I don't even know if like YouTube has enough info for me to learn how to play this. Like, I don't know if I have the right guitar. I don't know anything. But you know what? I'm excited to try and learn to play it. And even though I'm still learning, should be interesting, you know? And I can just brain dump all of these feelings in my journal or just on a piece of paper and just get it off my chest and make sure to always end it on a positive note. Because you could start a journal entry sometimes and be writing about like how shitty things are going. Like maybe you're having a terrible day. Sometimes you just have a terrible day and you start writing about like how bad it is. But eventually, like, as long as you can put a positive spin on it at the end and be like, but you know, tomorrow's a new day. It just gets all the bad stuff out. You know, it's like emptying a lint trap. It's like sometimes you got to just take the lint out, put it on paper or in the garbage, and move on.
Why would you put lint on paper?
I was like in between the analogy. Like the lint goes in the garbage, the thoughts go
Oh.
on the journal.
I was like, is there something I don't know?
Yeah, I was like half doing an analogy. Wasn't perfect, but you know, I'm not a perfect person, and that's I'm working on it. I'm learning, I'm progressing, and I'm proud of myself for trying to make an analogy there. You know, like everything, I'm just like my brain is just like,
No, it was perfect.
yeah, my brain is just always like, I'm not an imposter. I'm not perfect either, but I'm making progress.
Yeah. It's very freeing. And also, I was going to say too, like, oh, frick, what was I going to say? I hate that. I hate when I do that. It was about, oh my God, it was so good too.
You know what though? Remind yourself, we might not be the most perfect podcast hosts, but we're not imposters because our intentions are good. We're here to help you guys, but we're not perfect ourselves, and that's what this is all about. So maybe that was meant to happen.
Well, I mean, I edit our podcast. I would have just trimmed that out. I trim out all those little things that I do or you do where it's just like wasting people's time because I want it to be like engaging. So should I keep that in there? Maybe not.
Yeah,
I don't know.
you should leave this whole thing
Oh my
just to
gosh.
remind people.
My perfectionism is like, what? Why? What? But if they've made it 38 minutes in, I mean, come on, or however long it's going to be once I trim out the other stuff, maybe like 30 minutes, 35 minutes. I don't know.
They're
Anyway.
here. They're here for the real stuff, and it's okay. But I
Oh, I
mean,
remember.
oh, great, wonderful. Leave that whole thing, please.
So what that reminded me of, and I think we've talked about this analogy, but I use this all the time, is whenever we keep something buried inside of us, it's like a little seed that we plant. And the more that we let it fester in there, I mean, it's going to grow into something, and you don't want that to happen. So when you do write your thoughts out onto a piece of paper, or you talk to your therapist or your best friend or somebody, you're allowing that to be uprooted, that lie to be uprooted, as long as you then replant a different seed that is speaking affirmations over you. So you might be in the habit of overthinking things and looking at your content and not feeling proud of it, or looking at anything in your life and not feeling proud. But those feelings, they don't have to be there, right? You need to uproot them, let them out, and then you need to fill that little hole where the seed was with a different seed. I recommend a positive affirmation, and then you need to start watering that little positive affirmation so that way it can bloom into something else and maybe branch off into some other area of your life where you can have, more positive affirmations spoken over you in that area.
Very similar, in my sales presentation, when I was first trying to sell my life coaching program for $50, I had a couple slides and I was like, your mind is a garden. And right now it looks like this. And it was a very overgrown garden. And there were some beautiful plants and flowers, but a ton of weeds. And I was like, you have to pull the weeds and you have to water the flowers and the vegetables and things. But in the garden that is your mind, pulling the weeds is taking the negativity out. It's writing it down. It's talking about it. And it's reprogramming your thinking and changing the soil so that weeds are less likely to grow. Like that's reprogramming your thinking, is like almost like fertilizing the soil so that weeds are less likely to grow there. And you got to pull the weeds out too. And all of that just leads to like things like imposter syndrome. That's just a kind of weed that can grow in the garden that is your mind. But if you reprogram your own way of thinking, right, you change the soil so that imposter syndrome can't grow there super well. And when it does show up, you pull it out, you write it down, you get it on paper, you get it out of the garden. You will just have a beautiful, beautiful mind full of flowers and tomatoes and peppers and whatever you care about, and jalapeno poppers.
Oh God, can you imagine if those grew already made? Um, Nick, I think weeds are so beautiful. They used to grow in my yard when I lived in a house, and I loved them. I'm like, do we have to cut them? Like, why do we have to get rid of them? And so I'd pick them and I would like use them as like decoration. Like, I just think they're so pretty. But I know that they ruin things, and so I don't know why I brought that up, because it's so not in alignment with what we're talking about. Uproot the weeds, get rid of them. But also, if you think weeds
Give
are
them to
pretty,
Michelle.
give them to me. I don't know. They're flowers. Weeds are flowers. They're so pretty. I don't know. I think all flowers are pretty. So anyway, that's
You are so
irrelevant.
funny. But you know what? You've reprogrammed your garden to be accepting of all plants.
I
And
really am.
if that's what you want your garden to look like, then wonderful.
Yeah. My affirmations have gotten way too good where I'm like, everything's beautiful. I mean, my bio literally says everything has beauty, because I think it does. I think everything's beautiful in its own way, which is like, I don't know.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Is there anything else that we need to hit on to make sure that Lexi and all of our listeners can beat their imposter syndrome? Because it's not something that just goes away. Like it still comes up,
Hmm.
but we now have given people strategies to deal with it.
Yeah. Two things. When I'm not very well aware of how to do something like my Spanish or acting, because acting is hella hard, I do feel that imposter syndrome. I do. And so I think that figure out one area of your life you really want to get good at so you don't feel that anymore. If you want to not have just imposter syndrome all over, spread out between 20 different things that you're doing. So I think Nick is so confident in his life coaching. Obviously, listen to him, guys. He's freaking amazing. And so I think that he has that nailed down. He's not an imposter. So now he's allowed himself to branch off into guitar, surfing, and Spanish. And I think that's so important, because then he can now use his confidence from his life coaching and content creation into these other areas of his life. So before you start jumping ship, a lot of people start off with full time jobs, or they want to stay as a full time worker and they're doing content creation. Maybe content creation, you do feel less confident, but you're super confident at your job. That's amazing. Use your confidence from there and implement those feelings into what you're doing as a creator, saying, this is practice. Just like the baseball analogy Nick said, like, okay, practice is where I can fail, I can flop my content, I can work on my skills. And then the game is whenever you get a brand deal and you're getting paid for something. Like that's the game. But think of all the content you're posting on your own, all the stuff you're making as practice. People don't see that. Like, yeah, of course you're posting it, but like don't put that much weight on it. Don't put that much emphasis on your content that you're doing for practice, and then see like the brand deals as, or this is the game, which is why like in Brands Meet Creators, I love that we are able to review people's videos that they're about to send off to a brand, give them advice. It's just amazing because we have a community where we are helping people who might feel that less confidentness for their baseball game in their content, and we get to help them. But you have to be practicing on your own, and you're only going to do that if you just keep showing up and executing.
Yeah, so good. So good. You can't hit a home run from the dugout.
Yeah.
Wow. We knew this was going to be a fun episode because we love talking about this, and I love talking about it just cuz I used to feel like such an imposter, and I feel like I've made it to the other side where I can pick up anything and be the worst person in the room at it, and I bet I will have more fun than everyone else. And over the long haul I'll be better than everyone else too because I've set aside what I care about, and I hope it helps everyone else too. I know this is going to be impactful. And again, if you guys want your own AYQ where we answer your questions, just go to creationtocashflow.com and submit your question or your topic that you want us to talk about. Tell us your name, tell us where you're leaving the message from, like where in the world you are, because we'd love to know. And just ask us a question or tell us what you want us to speak on, because I mean, we probably felt like imposters doing the first few episodes of this, but our intentions were so damn good and pure that we were like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if one person listens to this show and enjoys it, then that's a massive win. So we're so grateful to all of our listeners. And if you have been loving this, drop us those ratings and reviews. It goes such a long way for us, especially as we're trying to grow the show. We want to be able to do more episodes, give you guys more content, more advice, more everything. So share the love with us and share the show with other people because it really, really does help. And what else, Michelle? Should we tell them where they can find us, or do you have anything else you want to add?
Nope, let's tell them where they can find us.
You guys can find Michelle on everything at Michelle JH with 2 L's, then 4 E's, then a J, then an H. You can find me at Get Ahead with Nick everywhere except LinkedIn. Maybe one day they'll let me back on. And you can also go check out the long form video. Like you can watch us record these episodes on YouTube, Creation to Cashflow, and check out the short form clips too, also at Creation to Cashflow. So we love you guys and thanks for listening.